Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Electricpreneur Secrets, episode 130, Joe. Can you believe it?
I mean, can I? Yeah, but wow, it feels like it just flew.
It's flying by,
Really?
man. Welcome back
hmm
to the Electricians Podcast, where me and Joe keep showing up 5 days a week to help you guys, electricians, master their sales, simplify their pricing, and deliver premium level electrical service. This week is certainly no exception as we deep dive into options. Now, the last few weeks, we've been focusing on these deep dives and getting some really positive feedback. So let me ask you, Joe, would it be wrong of us to want to do that again?
No, it would not be wrong, my brother. I love
All
what we
right.
do, and I'm happy to do it again.
All right. Well, yesterday we got into this whole point of like, it's not that people don't want options, they just don't want shit they don't need.
No one wants to feel sold on anything. I mean, it's one of those situations where you go into a call and they call you for the trip GFI, they call you for the bathroom fan fixture not working correctly. They're not looking to hear that their panel was changed. Doesn't mean it doesn't need to be said, but no one wants to be offered something they feel they don't need.
Yeah, 100%, right? There's so much resistance in today's market just from watching all the contractor rip-off shows. I don't know.
Mhm.
Is it just Canadian? Homes on Homes? Was that a Canadian thing?
I think it's a Canadian thing, but we do have other things. There's like random TLC shows like you can redo your entire kitchen for $20,000 in 3 days. It's like, yeah, if you have a team of 100 skilled laborers that can come in.
Yeah, yeah. So since the early 2000s, we've all encountered situations where we've gone to do work for a homeowner, and they've probably even warned you by saying, just so you know, I watched this
Mm-hmm.
show. You ever hear someone
Mm-hmm.
say that to you? I've had that
Yeah.
about Homes on Homes. Just so you know, I watch Rick or Rick Holmes, one says. He put words in my mouth there. I was going to say
Oh
Mike Holmes.
God.
One got me.
I love it.
Anyways, you encountered that, right? So today's a
Yeah.
little bit further on that because that begins to set up a bit of a brain block and a heart
Mm-hmm.
block and a like, how the hell do I present value blocks? Sometimes it leads to us electricians running a play that isn't actually adding value for anyone. This
Mm-hmm.
get in, get out whole, like, I don't even have time to present options. Why bother?
Mm. Can I touch on one thing before you move on to it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I think that that's actually something that I'm sure someone's listening to this and saying, well, what do you do? Right. And it's just one line that I think would really put some value in some people's pockets.
Let's do it.
Where if someone comes by and says, just so you know, I watched the show, or just so you know, I'm getting 3 options, or just so you know, I'm getting estimates, the answer is the same. It starts off with gratitude. Thank you for telling me that. Then goes into addressing. So, first off, Clay, I want to say thank you so much for telling me that. But do you mind if I ask you a question? We just got here. What were you hoping to communicate by telling me that?
Hmm.
And then just sit with it. And I guarantee they weren't expecting to field that question.
Yeah.
Because you'll
Yeah.
hear things like, oh, well, I'm looking to just letting you know I'm not buying something today. Well, great. I'm not looking to sell something today. Did I give you the impression we were just doing a sales routine? And then you're right back into it.
I love that you addressed that right off the bat here because as we've said many times, taking it to the ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the impulse there is to actually react
Mm-hmm.
instead of just going to that ridiculous place with them for a second.
Correct.
Like, wow, you got me. I actually
Mm-hmm.
came here to rip you off. I wouldn't
It's
say
funny.
that. I would go with Joe's method, obviously. But in asking that question, it's where most of us won't go with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And because we
It's
won't go there, that response, that reaction is to feel like, okay, the client's on to me. They think we're not on the same team. I'm not providing value yet. It puts
mhm.
us on edge. And what does that do for the rest of the call?
The rest of the call is going to really end up sucking. And, because there's really 2 outcomes to it. One, you're on edge and your process is going to fail, or at least suffer because you're on edge and you're not doing authentic. Or two, you're going to blow past it and you're going to be like, I didn't hear that. That doesn't exist. And you're going to ignore it and try to run the play regardless. And though you might be on play, you're unfortunately not going to be on code with the customer. And they're going to be like, this guy doesn't listen to me. And why would you buy from someone who doesn't listen to you? So that's why you have to take it to the ridiculous, because either outcome doesn't lead to the promised land.
Well, I love that. Let's take it to the ridiculous right now. Let's
All right.
challenge anyone who's ever thought that, you know what, I don't want to offer options because they don't want options. Let's take that to the ridiculous. Joe, I'm going to ask you very simply, even though we've kind of covered this already, why do some people say they don't want options?
Why do people say they don't want options, or why
Yep.
do electricians say that people don't want options?
Why do homeowners tell electricians that they don't want options ever?
Okay. The main reason is because they don't want to feel sold on anything. It's the customer comes in and says, I'm asking for this, just do this, then get out. I'm not looking for anything extra. I'm not looking to be sold nothing. Just do your routine somewhere else.
All right, let's get more ridiculous.
Mhm.
Why do they feel that way?
The reason they feel that way is because there's a level of dissonance that they have where there's a disconnect between you and that customer. The customer is going to feel that because if they feel like you're someone that's going to try and sell them something, they have to put up the wall very quickly. And worst comes to worst, or even, sorry, in worse situations, when that wall goes up, even though they called you, you'll sometimes feel like, do they even want this? Like, they called me. I didn't knock on your door.
Yeah. Okay. A level deeper. And why would a homeowner even convey that? Why would they feel that? What is the root cause of that feeling?
The root cause is fear. Really deep down, this customer is afraid. They don't want to be taken advantage of. Maybe they got taken advantage of in the past. Maybe something happened where they're worried that something happened to a friend. Everyone's got that horror story that happened to a friend. I mean, I have plenty of them just in my own home, let alone all the experiences we've seen over the years. So as customers get older and as they've seen more things, they learn to be wary of more. And now that wariness goes front and center, and they're like, no, not this house, not me, not again.
Okay. And now what's really crazy about this then is we see that as a sign to change our play and not offer options at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that in itself means that we are feeling like what they're projecting. So the
Correct.
question I have is, to be absolutely ridiculous with this, Joe, are you the person that ripped them off?
No,
Was it you?
not at all. Nope.
Then why do you feel bad about that?
Because when you get into a situation, whether it's an argument, whether it's an altercation, there's usually one dominant personality. And that dominant personality often bleeds over to the other people in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk in and you may be thinking, I don't want to be seen as a salesperson. You may already have that negative image in your head of what sales is. And then to have the customer say, listen, I just want you to know, I just need this done. I'm not looking for anything else. If you're looking to sell something, this isn't the house. And now you have your unspoken fears addressed directly to your face. And people are going to recoil at that because it's like, I'm not going quietly into this dark night. No, I'm just like, I'm just head down. I'm all right. No problem.
Okay. So let's justify this again then. Let's build electricians back up.
Mm-hmm.
Where I did my training, 40 weeks of schooling and apprenticeship training just to become an electrician.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that's common in some states, in others, there's less, but it was 4 years, 10 weeks a year for us.
Yeah.
Then to become a master electrician was another couple years of experience and passing a rigorous code test.
I remember that.
To prove that you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
How many homeowners go through that level of training?
None.
There's got to be a gap between what they know and understand and what you know and understand.
I mean, it sounds almost like you're setting me up to start talking about options, the benefits of them, right?
Almost, right? Is this
almost,
a setup?
right?
Is this a setup?
Is this? That's what it is. It's a sting operation.
So it almost gets to this question of like, is this really just a question of our personal value that we bring?
It's not a value against us, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to limit what we can do so that they can have the control over the call and feel like they won't get taken advantage of. The problem is by trying to box us in, they've actually forced us to deliver less than our level of ideal service. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't want to feel like you've been taken advantage of. And yet you're mad that the electrician is charging you $358 for this GFI, but you specifically told him not to give you anything other than that. So therefore, he's not going to offer things that would be more valuable and could defer the cost of it.
Wow. That's deep, Joe. But it makes so much sense, right? So we get stuck in this loop. Next thing you know, we're cheating on ourselves, not sticking to our offer. In fact, I know so many electricians, I get on the call every day with electricians. And guys, if this is you, if we're speaking directly to you, if you're feeling the dagger, as many people say sometimes to us that, you know, it felt like you were talking right to us. If that's you right now, don't worry, you're not alone. We're talking about deep-rooted emotional impact here. But on this podcast specifically, the fact that we've addressed this, we're trying to create a safe place to just embrace that for a second and say, is this about the client? Is this about my value? Or is this actually a fear-based response? Am I living a self-fulfilling prophecy, as you said? Because going back to where we started here, if you asked that question when they said, just so you know, Joe, thanks for coming. Service Loop, heard great things, saw the reviews, but we're not looking for options today. We want you to fix what we called about, give us the price and get out. If someone said that and you asked that magic question again, please help us.
Sure. So I really appreciate you letting me know. Thank you so much for the transparency. But if I can ask you a question, we've only just gotten here. What were you hoping to communicate by telling me that?
There's a chance they might say, just so you know, Joe, somebody already ripped us off before. This event happened. We've heard from friends that this event happened. They must have had some exposure to this, whether it's from a TV, through friends and communication, or an event that happened to them. If every time someone said, I don't want options, you instead recognize that, oh, they've had a conflict with options before. My job now is to just justify our process and why we do it the way we do it. And anyone in our inside track, I can tell you the reason they offer options is
it works. It's going to work.
And to help educate and give people the control over the sales process. How unsalesy is that?
I mean, pretty much that's as unsalesy as it can get, because our whole goal is to say, listen, I don't care which one you take. I'm going to create a range of choices from the finest that money can buy down to the most bare bones economical you can do. I'll show you the choices. Hands go up, push it aside. You choose what you want. Simple as that.
And so if that's the case, let's push the boundaries a bit further here and define where it gets salesy. Do you think that would be helpful?
Yes.
Now, if I start to put bias or weight on an option, now sometimes this might revolve around a safety concern. Would that be a due area for me to establish some extra inflection, some extra emphasis on that option, Joe?
Yes and no. So let me explain the reason why. So I would say it needs to be stressed during the observation, not during the presentation. The reason being is that if you stress a safety concern overly hard, the customer might think your intentions aren't ethical. I mean, you can have, like, granted, if you go to a panel and you open the cover and you smell burnt fish and it's just all plastic and melted, that's one situation. Obviously, you're going to put an emphasis on, listen, this is going to literally catch fire and melt your house down.
Yeah.
But in almost every other circumstance, it comes down to the customer recognizes if you're pushing something with a bias, they think that's the one they want me to take. And often the more permanent fixes are the more permanent options. And now the customer sees, now I see the game. You put this option in front of me, you explain the safety concern, and that's the way you want me to go. It's 10 times more than the bottom option. Nope, not interested.
Yeah, valid. So it almost becomes, correct me if you feel I'm wrong here, but it's a game about time. Because when I see a client, I don't just see today's visit. I see today's visit as an investment to a long-term relationship. And we exercise this every day. I got on a call yesterday with a guy just to help who doesn't start his business maybe till spring. Either way, the call was booked. I've got half an hour slated. I'm with this person, giving value to the best of my ability to help them, whether they're a client for us today or not, because I recognize that this is a step in our path together. Because I recognize that that person too has value, even though it's not some big flashy sale today. That's not what's important when you're communicating value.
I love that. And I want to ride that wave for a second, because that's why whenever they choose an option, it always defaults to that's a great choice. What did you like about that option? Because we're letting them know it doesn't matter what you pick. You are a grown adult who's been given a range of choices and understands the level of safety that goes connected to it. And as a result, you've made a choice that benefits your family. And I'm going to support that. If you bought the economy, okay, that's a temporary fix, and we're going to schedule time to come back to restore it. You bought a platinum fix, great. That's going to give you the best value because you've gotten everything done once and you don't have to do it again. Mid-range, also still fine. You got good quality at a residential level.
So I'm going to go on a limb here and say this. Suppose someone takes our bottom option.
Okay.
Would it be so crazy to think that might also just be a measure of trust and not actually of recognized need for a service at this point?
That actually is a really good thought. And it also leads to ways that we can use that exact strategy to launch yourself to a higher sale.
100%.
So,
What if we looked at the 6 options like a roadmap for what you suggest for this client's future? The roadmap doesn't go away. You save it on file. No matter what choice they chose, that's just where they want to commit to the journey for now. You could still follow up, have happy calls, see how they're doing, continue developing a relationship, and over the coming years, actually fulfill everything within your top option, couldn't you?
I agree. And in fact, for all of you guys out there that are listening that are saying, well, what if I've already sold the job and now I'm going back to this customer again? How can I offer them 6 options? Well, did they buy your platinum? Was it justified in the things you were suggesting? You can keep them on file and be like, hey, I remember last spring we were talking about having a whole home electronic safety system installed, but I know we didn't get it done. Do you remember why you chose not to have that? And then just go into it and be like, oh, well, I forgot. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have the money at the time. Okay. And now you've started the conversation. And that can apply to the relabeling, the restorations, the electronics protection. It can apply to anything, really. You just have to have a strong because I'm offering it. As long as your because frame is strong, you're good to go.
I'm a little biased, but this might be one of the most powerful conversations we've ever had on options. Guys, if you started to look at this 6 options, and you can even see this begins to justify even the spread from 3 to 6, as you're predetermining a roadmap for this client's home, something that you'll continue to readdress as you continue to have touch points in your relationship with them. Doesn't that begin to even make more sense why options are so important? Because otherwise, what do we do? If we offered one thing, you're going to walk away with what you did, check in hand, and you've got a relationship about as long as a realtor. We made the sale. Let's go celebrate and move on to the next. You could tell I'm emphasizing that because I'm hopping in my seat like a little chick. Isn't that just a disservice to yourself and them?
You're right. Because what you've done is you've made the relationship transactional. It is, you've called me to provide a service. I provided the service. You've paid me for my service. Talk to me when you're ready for the next service. But if you had a relationship and you had a reason why you were offering things, you could even be justified by saying, you know what? I know what I can do. I'm going to call them in the winter. I'm going to be like, hey, I remember we talked about your de-icing cables being installed. Now, before it gets too cold, I just wanted to make sure and see if that was still something you were entertaining or if you think it's better to do it next spring. That's something to talk about. They didn't take it then. It's justified to offer now before it gets cold. Let's offer it again just to make sure that they know that we care and they're top of mind.
I agree. I agree 100%, man. I couldn't agree more. This options thing becomes so valuable, you guys. So if we've established that and we're all on the same page, then what's
Mhm.
holding us back? If you heard what we just said and you're going, yeah, that makes sense actually. I should be serving at the highest level. I should be having these options, even to continue to fulfill this relationship without having to go back and forth every time.
Mhm.
If you agreed with that, then what's in the way now? What's the real challenge now? Anything coming to mind, Joe?
Yeah, I have one thing that comes top of mind for that,
All right.
which is they don't know how. It's the thought of you're asking someone to do something that could be considered difficult from those who haven't done it. And now it goes against what the trade typically does. And therefore, they're like, well, it's hard to go along with everyone else if everyone else is going the wrong way. So it's a two-part exercise. You, one, need to recognize the why. And I think we've effectively done that. And now that the why has been established, now we need to go into the how. Because I can see someone saying, well, I can come up with 3, but any more than that's just being pushy. But if you knew the things you could offer that were on code that would come organically from the relationship, it wouldn't feel salesy anymore. And once that salesy feeling is gone, you wouldn't be opposed to doing it.
Definitely. And if you exercised a process that actually asked good questions
Mm-hmm.
consistently to always extract what clients' needs, desires, and problems are, in recognition that, again, they didn't do the 4 years of training or whatever it was where you are. They don't have a master's license. There may be things in their home that they're unable to attach to you. Would you agree with that, Joe?
Yeah.
I'm going to mute myself
Realistically,
as a plane flies by, so please fill the space here.
no, that's fine. I was going to say, I love it. So the situation that I've run into in the past, I'm sorry, you threw me when you said the plane was driving by. My first thought was like, oh, there's a plane
I think
driving
it's
by.
gone now anyway. I could hear it. I don't know if you guys could hear it. Last thing I want to do is ruin the audio for this thing.
No, I appreciate that. It's just my first thought was planes. But anyway, back. What was your question? And I'll get right back on point.
Okay, let's jump back into this. So, if we're again stuck in the how, we're going
Okay.
through a process to ask questions to actually develop observations from the needs, desires, problems that clients have that they may not even be relating to what we do for a
Yes.
living, how we help
Mhm.
them,
That I
right,
have.
in their home.
Okay. So the thing is, I've actually gone on calls before where a customer has called for one thing, ends up purchasing something completely different. And I'd like to just explain the why that actually happens,
Mm,
because it's exactly what you're just talking about. The customer thinks you're an electrician. You work with a panel, you work with outlets, you work with switches, you work with lights. That is the extent of what you do. You're just a guy with a hard hat and a vest that comes in. That's the only electrician they know, right?
yeah.
They're not familiar that we are home energy specialists. They're not familiar that we are generator specialists or that we're Tesla certified dealers or EV charging specialists. They're not aware that we understand that just not just doing the panel, but modifying it with sensing systems or anti-shock protections or electronic safety systems would benefit their lives. But because they can't connect us with that, they would never think to ask it, even if they wanted it. And going even further than that, it's not even that they, even if they did think of it, it's not always top of mind. Like if you go to a customer's home office and they say, I want recessed lights, your thought is, sure, I could do recessed lighting, but then offering a UPS system under their computer, or having an automatic generator, or having dimmable lights, or having motion controls, or sound machines that could block out white noise. All those things would be helpful for a home office. They didn't think about it, but you should.
I could have used one for the plane that drove by moments ago.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, I'm sorry. You could tell my brain just jumped to that immediately. It's like, oh, plane, hide.
So there's all sorts of reasons, guys, but some of the most commons we hear why we wouldn't go ahead and make options is that we get stuck in a tech brain. And we've done podcasts on this before where we tend to want to switch cover plates or upgrade to the newest technology or, change the quality of a part or material. But we can come up with options much greater than that more have to do with the client's time delay, level of effort and sacrifice, right? By
Mhm.
offering the various things and maintenance agreements and club memberships. And there's always ways to sweeten the deal and sweeten that relationship. There's some
Mhm.
fine examples of this, and we're going to go through more this week. So I don't want to stop there. Another reason would be time. A lot of guys say, well, I don't
Mhm.
have time for that. Schedule's full. But I urge you to reconsider this at this very point. We did a couple episodes about being overworked and underpaid, an
Mhm.
emergency. Isn't that qualifying for that exact thing? If you could get more from every relationship, wouldn't it make sense to slow the schedule down and have more intent and longer relationships with every client with less cost of goods sold? Go ahead, Joe, please jump in.
Yeah, I didn't want to break your flow because I can tell you're on it. I love it. It's one of those things where I've tried it both ways. And I can tell you from experience that when you overload your schedule, you'll find that you just cannot create options because it requires you to be in this time space where you're like, I'm invested in this customer and I don't care about the 3 other, 4 other, 5 other calls I have. This is the customer I'm going to talk to, and I'm not leaving until I've served this customer. You can't do that when you've got 4, 5, 6 calls ahead of you and you're like, I don't even know how I'm going to get to them, even if everything went perfect.
Yeah.
But if I limited it to 3 calls, a morning, a midday, and an afternoon, I know I've got a multi-hour window where I could dive in and really sweeten the relationship. And now that a customer like, trusts, and respects you, you have the space to ethically offer something because now you know them enough to say, I know this would be relevant and valuable to you because, and now you can tie it in. So you're doing more with far less, keeping you from burnout, helping your margins, making your peace of mind better. It's just
Mhm.
way easier managing your schedule that way.
Definitely. So if you guys are listening, if you're watching live in our VIP group on Facebook, engaging with us as Rich and Juan did today, if you're feeling this tech brain problem, the time issue, this get in, get out mentality, the options aren't quite fitting, your fear of being more salesy, fear of having people thinking you're trying to take advantage of them, not having a process to provide these options consistently. There's no app for that. If this simplified pricing is in the way, even if any of these things are in the way, just know that that's not your fault. Know that that's not your identity. Know that that's an industry void of support. That's why we're here. Know that that's the race to the bottom, that you're feeling gravity of everyone else is just flooding the gates of let's get this client, let's get this, that competitive pricing
Mhm.
problem. Know that there is some beliefs that need to be shifted out there, that people are concerned about having a salesman at their house. But if your process is built around this, they don't have to feel that way. And know that if you have this process and have this support and you train towards this so that you're not making a guinea pig of every customer, that you too can represent yourself wholly and ethically and provide amazing options, these roadmaps, if you will, for customers to stay for a long time and truly understand that you are just serving at the highest level without any undue pressure on anything
Mhm.
other than choosing you.
Which is always the right choice.
So, action item or all star, what do you want, Joe?
I think I'm going to take the All Star today because I got something
Okay.
off the top of mind.
Okay. I'm going to revert back to something I said yesterday, guys. I want you to recognize that as we put posts out, as we do content on this, as we speak on these podcasts, you may encounter people that really go against this. You may yourself be feeling resistance. And if you are, then I'm happy that you made it this far in the episode. You may
Mhm.
yourself find that this is controversial and not something that you're 100% sold on. But please know this, for the people that are out there saying anything against providing options to serve your clients at the highest level, they have not taken the due action. They may tell you, but they cannot show you that it does not work, because it does. When there's a process behind it, it does. So please, as an action, I know this is a big one, but hear what we're saying. Reconsider what we've said today. What's stopping you from providing 6 options? What's really in the way of you serving at the highest level? And just take note of that. Hold that big, heavy mirror and just know, is this me? Could I be doing more? I'm hoping that ties in with your all-star, Joe.
It actually does. And
All
I'm going
right,
to say
let's
it's
go.
really cool because the reason I wanted the All-Star was I had a very specific example that I think would help a lot of people. And that is, if you don't offer options, you are setting yourself up for your customer to be mad at you. And let me explain how. So a lot of times, some of us go into the panel job, doesn't matter what it is. And we say the customer doesn't want additional options on this thing. But the question I have for you is, what would happen if you did this whole service, 100 amp to 200 amp upgrade, and then the customer then later next year requests a whole home generator? What you would have to do is either modify the system to make it work, whether you're using taps or splices or connectors, or what you could have done is installed the ATS in advance, or at least given them the option of that, where it would be meter, then ATS, then panel, rather than you having to undo the work you've just done to then add this in. Could you imagine the customer going into a situation where they didn't get a chance to purchase something from you and now they're mad that they didn't get that opportunity? The reason why I'm making this the all-star action is because I've had those experiences happen to me before I was so committed to doing this option framework. Now, the all-star action is this. Next time you're worried about offering options, I want you to question what would happen a year from now if I didn't. Would they be able to come back to me and say, well, I would have if you did? You need to be able to remove that one argument. Because what that does is if you can't squash that, that'll hinder future relationships. Because now when they do say something, you'll be able to point to it and say, well, remember, we did actually mention this, and you even circled the option you liked. So let's revisit that one. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, impressive. Really good. I love how you tied that into a real situation, Joe. I know that some people got some incredible value from today's show, episode 130. Again, guys, we're here 5 days a week. This is just Tuesday. We've got a few more to go. Just a couple of master electricians with business addictions trying to help you and your options as we master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. I cannot wait to see you guys again tomorrow. So please join us back for more as we go through the STYO again, but this time stick to your options with some more examples and just how to create those options with Joe, the sales bot Lucani himself.
Well, thank you.
Cheers, Joe. Thanks for everything.
Honored as always.